إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد, to proceed to continue our explanation of Surah al-Baqarah, and the next ayah after the one that we completed in our previous lesson is right. Jazakallahu khairan, where Allah Azza wa Jalla said, "Ba'd a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim, wa idha qila lahum aminu kama amana an-nas قالوا أنؤمن كما آمن السفهاء ألا إنهم هم السفهاء ولكن لا يعلمون." Allah Azza wa Jalla said that if it is said to them, Aminu, have al-Iman, as the people have al-Iman, they say, Anu'minu, should we believe kama amana as-Sufaha, as as-Sufaha have believed? Ala innahum hum as-Sufaha. So Allah Azza wa Jalla responded that rather they are as-Sufaha. Walakin la ya'lamun, but they do not know. They are unaware of it. The first point to note about this ayah, as Shaykh Muhammad bin Saalih al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah mentions in his book, not of Tafseer but of Ahkam al-Qur'an, is that in the previous ayah, which is the one where Allah said, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ لَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ قَالُوا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ, that if it is said to them, do not create fasad upon this earth, they say that we are muslihun, we are the reformers. Ala innahum humul mufsidun. So Allah Azza wa Jalla said, no, rather they are al-mufsidun. They're the ones who spread corruption. But then what did Allah say? Walakin la yash'urun. Allah said, la yash'urun. They do not perceive it. Perception with senses. They do not see it, they do not hear it, they do not feel it. That's ash-shu'ur, senses. So Allah Azza wa Jalla, in relation to their fasad, Allah said that they don't perceive it, they cannot sense it. Why? And in this ayah, Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَلَكِنْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, but they are unaware, they have no ilm of it. Because in the previous ayah, when Allah spoke about those who commit fasad, that is something that you can see. When someone spreads corruption in the earth, like the one who spreads alcohol or drugs or interest or al-fawahish, that's something that you can see. It's something you can hear. So Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَلَكِنْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ, but they cannot perceive it. So even though they've got senses, the sense of sight and hearing, they can't even then perceive it, they can't recognize it. But in this ayah, the one that follows, Allah is talking about a different subject, and that is al-Iman. And al-Iman is where? It's in the heart. It's not something that you can see or hear. It's present first in al-qalb, the heart, which is why Allah said, وَلَكِنْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, but they are unaware of it. So Allah negated their knowledge and related to something which is in the heart in this ayah, but in the one that precedes it, Allah negated their ability to perceive and recognize the fasad, because that's something that you do with your senses, hearing and seeing. So if we return to the beginning of the ayah, Allah Azza wa Jalla said that if it is said to them, Aminu, have al-Iman. Who is Allah addressing here? The majority of al-Mufassirun, they said it is al-Munafiqun. It is the hypocrites. Because these ayat that we've been discussing during the previous lessons concerns al-Munafiqun. Others from Ahlul Ilm of Tafsir, they said it is al-Yahud. But the point is that as we mentioned previously and will continue to do so, is that the scholars of Tafsir, they have a particular principle. They say al-Ibratu fi umum al-lafzi la fi khusus al-sabab. That al-Ibra, the point to note about the ayah, is in relation to the meaning of it, the generality of its meaning. It's not in relation to who or what is specifically being addressed concerning the circumstances. So it's not in relation to those particular circumstances that took place at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, but it's the generality of the meaning. So here Allah is saying, if it is said to them, whether it is al-Munafiqun or it is al-Yahud or whoever it is who's going to respond in this way, if it is said to them, have al-Iman, and this is a very great matter, that Allah Azza wa Jalla addresses them and says, have al-Iman. And that's something that not only the Munafiqun were addressed with and al-Yahud, but also the believers. Allah Azza wa Jalla said in Surah An-Nisa, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu aminu billahi ورسوله والكتاب الذي نزل على رسوله والكتاب الذي أنزل من قبل. Or you who have al-Iman. Allah Azza wa Jalla is addressing the people who already have al-Iman. Allah addresses them and says, have al-Iman of Allah and His Messenger, wal kitab, and the book, nazzal ala rasulihi, that was sent down upon His Messenger, wal kitab alladhi anzala min qabl, and that which came down before. Then Allah Azza wa Jalla said, wa man yakfur billahi, and the one who has unbelief in Allah, wa malaikatihi, and His angels, wa kutubihi, and His books, wa rusulihi, and His messengers, wal yawmil akhir, faqad dalla dalalan ba'idan. Then indeed that person has dalla, he has gone astray. Faqad dalla, that person is upon clear misguidance. So here Allah Azza wa Jalla addressing who? The people who already have al-Iman. He's addressing them and saying that you people, i.e. those who already have al-Iman, you have al-Iman in Allah, in His books, in His messengers, in His angels, and in the last day. Which illustrates that having al-Iman is something beyond simply saying, Amantu billahi, I believe in Allah. It's something beyond merely believing that Allah exists. How do we know this? Because even the mushrikun believed in the existence of Allah. Allah said, وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَسَخَّرَ الشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرِ لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهُ. That if you ask them, who is it who created the heavens and the earth and who made the sun and the moon subservient to His command, لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهُ. Indeed, they will say Allah. وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَهُمْ لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهُ. That if you ask them who created them, indeed they will say Allah. Which is why Allah Azza wa Jalla said in Surah Az-Zumar, وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهُ. That if you ask them who created the heavens and the earth, they will say Allah. So Allah said, He challenged them. He said, قُلْ أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ مَا تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِنْ أَرَادَنِيَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ هَلْ هُنَّ كَاشِفَاتُ ضُرِّهِ أَوْ أَرَادَنِي بِرَحْمَةٍ هل هن ممسقات رحمته قل حسبي الله. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, then say to those people, أفرأيتم ما تدعون من دون الله, can you see the ones who you call upon besides Allah? إن أرادني الله بضر, if Allah wants some harm for me, هل هن كاشفات ضره, do they have the ability to remove that harm? Those who you call upon besides Allah, do they have the ability to remove the harm if Allah intends that for me? أو أرادني بي رحمة, or Allah intends for me mercy. هل هن ممسقات رحمته, do they have the ability to stop that mercy from reaching me? So the point to note is that the mushrikun, they said that we believe in the existence of Allah. Rather, they affirmed that Allah is the creator of the heavens and the earth, and that He made the sun and the moon and the stars subservient to His command. They accepted that. But are they considered to be mu'minun? Are they considered to be ahlul iman? The answer is clearly no. Similarly, if we extended al-Yahud and al-Nasara, the Jews and the Christians, they too affirm that Allah is al-Khaliq. Rather, they will affirm more of the attributes of Allah than al-Mushrikun. So why did Allah still say in numerous ayat, لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْمَسِيحُ بْنُ مَرْيَمَ, that they have disbelieved those who say that Allah is al-Masih, the Messiah, the al-Masih Isa ibn Maryam. لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ ثَالِثُ الثَّلَاثِ, indeed they have disbelieved those who say that Allah is the third of three. So why is it that al-Yahud and Nasara are considered to be unbelievers, not having correct al-Iman, even though they affirm that Allah is al-Khaliq? Why?
With Yahud?
Both of them.
Because they rejected the process of it.
That's one reason, but specifically in relation to Allah, what is it that al-Nasara did, and similarly al-Yahud, that negated correct al-Iman in Allah?
They both said that Allah's got a son.
Right. قالت اليهود عزير ابن الله وقالت النصارى المسيح ابن الله. Allah said in Surah Tawbah that al-Yahud, they say Uzair is the son of Allah, and al-Nasara, they say al-Masih, the Messiah Isa alayhi salam, is the son of Allah. ذلك قولهم بأفواههم يضاهئون قول الذين كفروا من قبل. That is just a statement upon their tongues, and it's similar to those who disbelieved before. Right, so now if they affirm that, or if they say rather that Isa or Uzair alayhim salam are the sons of Allah, how does that negate Tawheed? How does that negate al-Iman?
Shirk.
It's shirk, but why specifically is it?
Shirk.
Right, because if you now say that Allah has a son, then it must mean that He is like Allah. And if He is like Allah, then He must have these names and attributes like Allah has. And if you affirm that, then you have likened Allah to someone else, or you have made a partner with Allah. Therefore Allah now is no longer unique. Allah is no longer unique. And therefore, He alone, why would He be worshipped? If there is someone or something else in creation who has the same names and attributes of Allah, why worship Allah Azza wa Jalla alone? And yesterday, I was reading an article regarding Catholicism and the Catholics, and they were trying to explain why they do not in fact worship Maryam alayhi salam. right? Even though they have these statues and they make a dua to her, and they have particular supplications where they call upon her and so on and so forth. But a group of priests were trying to explain why it is that actually they don't worship Maryam alayhi salam wa iyadhan billah. Now the point is, before he went on to this point, he explained the essence of Isa alayhi salam. And he said that Isa alayhi salam, he was a human being, and at the same time he was God. So within the body you had a God and a human being. And he said clearly that we don't say that that division is 50-50. He said it's not like a 50-50 split between the creator and his creation. He said rather it's the complete God and it's the complete human being. So I was reading it and I had to read it several times because it didn't make sense. I couldn't understand the point he was trying to say. But his argument is that at the very same time that Isa alayhi salam, iyadhan billah, is Allah, at the same time he's a human being too, which is why one cannot negate the other. And I read it and it didn't make sense, and I thought, subhanallah, that if you compare that to Surah al-Ikhlas, Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, say he is Allah, the one, as-samad, the one who is not dependent upon his creation, but the creation are dependent upon him, and so on and so forth. If you compare that aqidah or that iman in Surah al-Ikhlas with what this group of priests were trying to explain regarding the essence of Isa alayhi salam, then it was a difference between the heavens and the earth. So the point to note is that in this ayah that we're speaking about, when Allah said إِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ آمِنُوا, that when it is said to them, have al-Iman, what we must understand, that it's more than simply believing that Allah exists. It's having correct al-Iman, which is the reason why when Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned Surah al-Ma'idah, وَإِذْ أَوْحَيْتُ إِلَى الْحَوَارِيِّينَ أَنْ آمِنُوا بِي وَبِرَسُولِي قَالُوا آمَنَّا وَاشْهَدْ بِأَنَّنَا مُسْلِمُونَ. Allah Azza wa Jalla said that, remember when I inspired unto the disciples, al-Hawariyun, the disciples who were with Isa alayhi salam, and aminu bi wa bi rasuli, that you should have al-Iman in me and in my Rasul. And who was the Rasul that Allah was speaking about? Isa alayhi salam. Qalu, they said, amanna, we have al-Iman, washhad, and bear witness, بِأَنَّنَا مُسْلِمُونَ, that indeed we are Muslimun, which is a clear proof of two matters. One, that al-Hawariyun were upon the correct understanding, and secondly, that they were Muslimun. So in this ayah, when Allah Azza wa Jalla said that have al-Iman kama amana an-nasu, as the people have al-Iman, who is Allah Azza wa Jalla speaking about? Al-Mufassirun, the majority said it relates to as-Sahaba, the companions who were with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that makes sense, doesn't it? Because as we just mentioned, if Allah Azza wa Jalla addressed al-Hawariyun and said, you have al-Iman correctly in Allah and in His Messenger, and they said, we have al-Iman and bear witness, and that indeed we are Muslimun, it's logical and it's rational, and by extension it follows that the companions of the Prophet ﷺ would have the correct Iman too. Why? Because Allah Azza wa Jalla said, like in numerous ayat in al-Qur'an, like the ayah in Surah al-Baqarah, that's why we first encounter in the first juz, towards the end, the statement of Ibrahim alayhi salam, رَبَّنَا وَابْعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, the statement of Ibrahim alayhi salam, after it's mentioned regarding him building the Kaaba along with his son Ismail alayhi salam, he said he made this dua, Rabbana wabath fihim rasulan minhum, that oh Allah, send amongst them a Rasul, a messenger from amongst them, who would do what? Yatlu alayhim ayatika, that he would recite to them your ayat, your Qur'an, wa yu'allimuhum al-kitaba wal-hikmah, and he would teach them al-kitab and al-hikmah. He would teach them the book, and al-hikmah, wisdom. وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, and he would purify them. And that wording is mentioned in numerous other ayat. Further on in Surah al-Baqarah, in Surah al-Imran, that he sallallahu alayhi wasallam would teach the people who were with him at that time the book, al-Qur'an, al-hikmah, wisdom, and he would purify them. So just as the disciples of Isa alayhi salam were upon the correct iman, then similarly the companions radiyallahu anhum, they were upon the correct iman. And that's the essence or the basis of the understanding of Salafiyyah, which is that you take your understanding based upon the companions. Just as at the time of Isa alayhi salam, those people took their understanding from the al-Hawariyun. And similarly Allah Azza wa Jalla said regarding وَمِنْ قَوْمِ مُوسَى, and from the people of Musa ummatun, was a group of people يَهْدُونَ بِالْحَقِّ وَبِهِ يَعْدِلُونَ, that they were upon guidance, they guided others with the truth, and they were upright in that. They established their deen upon the truth. So from the time of Musa alayhi salam until the time of Isa alayhi salam to the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, those people who were with their messengers, they were upon correctness and uprightness with regards to their deen, which is why we attribute our understanding back to them. So here, when Allah mentioned to those people, Aminu kama amana nas, that you have al-Iman as the people have al-Iman, that's an affirmation for the correctness of Salafiyyah. You believe as the companions believed. They said in response, Anu'minu kama amana as-sufaha. They said, should we now have al-Iman as the Sufaha'u have al-Iman? So what does as-Safih mean? As-Safih means the one who is mentally deficient, in the sense that he doesn't have the ability to distinguish the truth from the falsehood, or he doesn't have the ability to distinguish that which is beneficial for that which is harmful. He can't differentiate between them, which is why Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned this term regarding the one who is going to loan money. Allah said, فَإِنْ كَانَ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِ الْحَقِّ سَفِيهًا أَوْ ضَعِيفًا أَوْ لَا يَسْتَطِيعُ أَنْ يُمِلَّهُ فَلْيُمْلِلْ وَلِيُّهُ بِالْعَدْلِ. That the one who has a right upon him now, whether he's going to loan this money or he's going to be in debt, if he's somebody who's safih, is somebody who's not particularly bright, who can't differentiate between what's better and what's harmful, and we fear that he's going to be exploited, then his wali, his guardian, he should undertake the responsibility of the writing of that contract for the exchange of money. Right? That is a safih. Similarly, Allah Azza wa Jalla in Surah An-Nisa, He said, وَلَا تُؤْتُوا السُّفَهَاءَ أَمْوَالَكُمْ الَّتِي جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ قِيَامًا. Do not give a safih, the one who's simple, your money that Allah's entrusted you with. Don't give it to him, because if you give it to him, he's just going to waste it and squander it. So we know that a safih is somebody who cannot discern or differentiate between that which is more beneficial or that which is harmful. Therefore somebody else should take that responsibility. But the greatest of all ignorance, which is what a safih is in reality the one who abandons the deen of Allah. Because Allah Azza wa Jalla said in Surah al-Baqarah regarding Ibrahim alayhi salam, وَمَن يَرْغَبُ عَن مِلَّةِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ إِلَّا مَنْ سَفِهَ نَفْسَهُ. That the one who turns away from the millah, the deen of Ibrahim alayhi salam, is the one safiha nafsa, is the one who has brought himself to ruin. He's the one who's actually disgraced himself. So when the mushrikun or al-Yahud or whoever it is responds when you call them to al-Iman, that they say that should we now have al-Iman as the sufaha'u? As-sufaha'u is the plural of safi. Should we have al-Iman as the sufaha? Actually, in reality, as Allah said, Ala innahum humus safaha, that in reality they are the ones who are safaha. Why? Because as we said, that the greatest ignorance is that when you call the people to al-Iman, belief in Allah and His messengers, His books, the angels, the final day, the decree, and so on and so forth, that you call them to this and they said this is ignorance. Why? Because as we mentioned, and will continue to do so, regarding the benefit contained in the deen of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Today we have this epidemic of substance abuse or alcohol abuse, and now it's been compounded with gambling, particularly with the availability of mobile devices and online gambling, that it's become an epidemic amongst the people. So when you call them now to what Allah Azza wa Jalla said in Surah al-Ma'idah, when He said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, innama al-khamru wal-maysiru wal-ansabu wal-azlamu ridsun min amli shaitani fajtanibuhu la'allakum tuflihun. That, O you who believe, indeed intoxicants and gambling are the other two matters, which is slaughtering upon the shrines of the people of shirk, and seeking your destiny or your fortune by arrows. That is from the evil actions of the shaitan. But then Allah Azza wa Jalla explained that إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ الشَّيْطَانِ, that the shaitan desires أَن يُوقِيَ بَيْنَكُمْ الْعَدَاوَةَ وَالْبَغْضَاءَ فِي الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ وَيَصُدُّكُمْ عَنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَعَنِ الصَّلَاةِ فَهَلْ أَنْتُمْ مُنْتَهُونَ. That the shaitan, he wants to cause hatred and enmity between you with intoxicants and gambling. And how well the shaitan does that. How many people they fight, or they transgress, or they wrong or abuse somebody else as a result of these two matters. Intoxicants, whether it's alcohol or drugs or gambling. How many people have caused their own ruin as a result of either intoxicants or gambling? So now, when we say that from al-Iman in Allah, is that, as Allah said, يَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا أُحِلَّ لَهُمْ, that they ask you what is lawful for them to consume. Allah Azza wa Jalla, Allah said that permissible for them is at-Tayyibat. At-Tayyibat are the pure and the good things that are beneficial for a person. So when Allah forbade intoxicants and gambling, then He did so because they're not beneficial for a person and they lead to his ruin. So now when you call a person to al-Iman, and from that is that you're then going to live a particular lifestyle where you abstain or refrain from all of these activities, then that's correct. Every sane and rational person would say, yes, that's a correct way to live your life. Nobody would say, yes, no, rather living in a constant state of intoxication or drinking regularly or squandering your money on gambling and games of chance, that's a beneficial way for a society to function. Nobody would argue that, which is why they even, in order to operate these premises, they need to have licenses and they need to be regulated and governed. Why? Because everybody understands that actually inherently they're harmful for people, but because of the profit that they acquire from them, they allow these activities to continue. And as one of my friends mentioned, who works or did work in A&E whilst he was a junior doctor, he said had they prohibited alcohol, then they could probably close A&E on a Friday and a Saturday night. That was like 10 years ago. It's probably extended to Thursday and now Sunday. But the point is that they said in this, as Allah mentioned this ayah, that should we believe now as a sufaha'u believe? Who is the more ignorant? Who is upon more misguided? The one who calls towards righteousness, belief in the existence of Allah alone without partners, who then directed mankind to that which is better, as Allah said in the beginning of Surah al-Isra, "Inna hadha al-Qur'an yahdi lillati hiya aqwamu." That indeed this Qur'an, it guides to that which is better for a person. Not that which is, but that which is better for a person. And the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, in it is every type of success and goodness, and abandoning it is every type of harm. So how can it be they said that if you call the people to this iman, then that's a type of ignorance or stupidity? Rather, as Allah said, "Ala innahum humus sufaha." Rather, they are as-sufaha'u. They are the ones who are ignorant and incapable of making that correct decision regarding that which is more beneficial and that which is more harmful. وَلَكِنْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But they لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. They are unaware of it. And remember, as we said at the beginning, Allah didn't say لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. He said لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Why? Because al-Iman is based upon al-ilm. And this ilm we derive from the book and the sunnah. Predominantly, in order to understand Allah, His essence, His names and His attributes, that is taken from the book and the sunnah. Allah said, وَلَكِنْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But they do not know, meaning they do not have knowledge of this matter, and which illustrates the danger of ignorance and the benefit of knowledge, that it guides you to al-Iman. And we shall conclude on that point. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.